Thank you, Chairperson. The most dangerous criminals in the world today are those who are able to commit crimes in multiple jurisdictions. They are dangerous because they are able to move assets across countries and they are able to escape from one jurisdiction to another. It was for this reason that International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Act and the Extradition Act were enacted in order to facilitate the prosecution of criminal offenders and enable their extradition from wherever they may be in the world. But as a lawyer himself, the Minister of Justice knows that the substantive element of a crime are as important as the procedural requirements for prosecuting crimes. As we cannot simply extradite a person without following our due processes, other countries too have their own procedures before extraditing persons of interest to us. What we know for a fact in as far as his request for the extradition of the Guptas to account for their crimes in South Africa is that the UAE refused our request because of a number of foolish administrative and legal mistakes from our side. This was a ruling made by a court in that country after finding that there were material defects with the papers submitted by South Africa in their request for the Gupta family members to be brought to this country to account for their crimes. Interestingly, the UAE made the decision in February this year and claimed that they had been communicating with their counterparts in this country at every possible step. It was shocking, therefore, that the Minister of Justice claimed ignorance and shock when South Africa finally communicated this in April. This raises a number of questions. The first one is whether or not the extradition request was deliberately bungled by Mr. Lamula and his department in order to shield the Guptas from ever accounting for their crimes. This is possible. The Gupta legacy benefited far more than the former president and those close to him. Past and present leaders of ANC simply found an easy scapegoat in former President Zuma. They themselves were used and are still used by big business to hollow out the state in return for crumbs. They are all complicit in the commission of these crimes and will do all in their power to prevent those with international footprint from ever accounting for their crimes, because if they do so, the leeches in the ruling party will also be exposed. The second question relates to the competency of those who made requests for the extradition of the Guptas politically, and the capacity of the NPA under Batohi to procedure any of the so-called state capture crimes more generally. How is it possible for a country awash with a number of legally astute people to miss basic requirements needed to assure the UAE government that their concerns are taken care of? We know for a fact that we cannot extradite a person to a jurisdiction to which they face a death sentence, for example. We would want to ensure that there are these guarantees before we extradite. So why do we fail this basic test to satisfy the legal requirements of the UAE? It might be sheer incompetence, which works quite well for the corrupt leeches leading our government. The NPA itself is utterly incompetent and are led by a very incompetent person in the form of Shamila Batohi. They have not prosecuted a single person out of the so-called state capture circus run by Raymond Zondo. They failed to prosecute our current president despite there being prima facie case of corruption relating to his Phala money laundering scheme. They failed to prosecute Mr. Godongwana, where there was evidence that he sexually assaulted a female worker at a massage parlor. There is no way that they would ever be able to lead a successful prosecution of the Gupta family. All this is deliberate. The capacity of the state is weakened so that those using the state for their personal bank continue doing so without even fearing the risk of arrest and successful prosecution. I thank you, Chair.